Tonight on the Online Wine Tasting Club, Jamie talks about changing clothes.
I just hope people don't notice too much that I've got a different shirt and a different background halfway through the interview.
While Alex decides it's better not to wear any at all. And just a few hours before we go live, we find out that our internet connection has quite literally been cut. Don't jump. Anyway, we are back, and it's time to explore a wonderful country that makes far more than just Riesling with the Discover series, Wines of Germany. Guten Abend, herzlich willkommen, and a very, very good evening to you as well, apparently.
Yeah,
a very warm welcome.
What he said.
It's lovely to see you, and we are, boy, are we glad to be able to see you, because we did have a little bit of a last-minute panic. It wouldn't be us if we didn't, but to be fair, having somebody physically scythe through our internet cable was a bit of an unforeseen one to deal with. So
It was a bit snap, crackle and pop, you could say, but we are here. We are here, and we are doing all things. Well, I say all things German. I always say all things, and it's really, really difficult to do an entire country in 6 wines. We could do 60 wines and still quite not cover it.
But you're doing them all next week, and they're all Rieslings.
I'm doing all Rieslings next week, but that's a whole different story. But what we're trying to do this evening is, I think, sometimes we think of Germany and we think, well, we're not mentioning that, are we?
No.
Sometimes we think of, we're not mentioning that either, are
No.
we? So we're not going to mention those things. But a lot of the time we think about Germany, and especially for anyone who, started their wine journey a little while back, kind of the times that me and Alex did, we think of German wines of being these medium sweet, mass-produced, just quaffable, drinkable wines. And they did an absolutely great job. They do what they do, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. They're massive, massive sellers. They sold lots. But there's so much more to it. There's whites, there's reds. It's not just Riesling.
It's sparkling.
There is. Don't say that.
We
Other
should talk
people will
about
want
Zect.
some. Yeah, we don't have it. We don't have it. But anyway, before we continue, we should probably get wine number 1 in the glass. So wine number 1, it says Rivana on the bottle, but Rivana is also Müller-Thurgau. Same thing, which is used as a blending grape, and this is made by Carl Jonah. And this is down in Baden, which we're going down to the south and over to the west.
Yep, exactly.
I've got to do that little bit with the compass there.
It's this region that sort of stretches out sort of along that sort of southwestern border of Germany and goes right down towards Switzerland, so you're in sort of foothills of the Alps, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it is absolutely jam-packed full of people most of the time with no clothes on, as far as I can tell. You haven't spent a summer in Germany unless you've been by a lake and half the people are naked.
Is that because they drink too much Müller-Thurgau?
It might be. We'll find out, shall we? But
it's
a cracking part
for
of the world.
me, Müller in a lot of wines, it's used as a blending grape. That it's kind of a table wine blended into things. But when it's done by itself, it's absolutely beautiful.
They planted quite a lot of it in England, but we're not in England tonight.
Are we not?
No.
No, there we are. Well, that was helpful.
That was very helpful.
I'm in
Very
England.
helpful. Okay, that's fair. Well,
There's nothing to do with it. So, but while we drink this, for those who need to get in, obviously get your Poly V up. For those who are joining us for the first time, if you go to TOWTC and Poly V, we can start getting our first tasting notes in there. But while we're tasting along and we're getting in there, do you think we should have a video and talk a little bit about the regions?
rude not to, wouldn't it?
Let's do that. Let's run
do
to a video
that.
with wine number 1.
Fantastic.
Germany. Industrial powerhouse, economic giants, sporting legends, and all of this despite being split in half for more than 40 painful years. This is not just a country of magnificent cities. It has beautiful countryside and some real geography going on. Vast rivers, huge mountains, pristine forests, and even geothermal spas. It's a country that I hold in very high regards. For more than 10 years, I worked for Deutsche Telekom and regularly visited. And when we did, we'd often go out drinking in Bonn. But here's the thing, we would always choose beer. And there is no denying that beer is what Germany's most famous for. There are fabulous, clean, local-made Kölsch, Weissenbiers, Pilsner, so on. It is cheap high quality and incredibly varied. And when we moved on from beer, it would often be to schnapps, the popular flavoured spirit drinks, fruit brandies, herbal infusions. But we never got tempted to go for wine. Surprisingly, it was only really around the 16th century that beer became the most popular drink. Before that, it was wine. Today, Germany is arguably the most distinctive major producer of wine in Europe, and is the fourth largest too. But much of this never leaves the region, and it is difficult. Perhaps aside from the crazy world of Italian wines, it is one of the hardest to understand, with its baffling naming conventions, labels and laws, not to mention the chance of picking up a bottle and finding that it's, well, a lot sweeter than you'd thought you were getting. And for sure, when many people think of German wine, the image it's trying hard to overcome is its reputation for cheap, mass-marketed, semi-sweet wines. But don't feel blue. None of that this evening. Oh, Jamie. You can spot who wrote this part of the script, can't you? Anyway, moving on from that, Germany is often admired for its elegant, aromatic white wines like Riesling, favourites with soms all around the world. But there is so much more to discover that we're going to try lots of different types from a few different regions. To give you a bit of context, let's talk about the history. German winemaking dates back to Roman times, and even as late as the 18th century, some of the traditional Roman techniques were still in use. Spiced wines were most popular before 1500, before whites took over, and then they moved on to heavier reds to ward off competition from Italian and French wine. The 16th century saw the wine industry go into decline, partly because of excessive expansion and a slump therefore in the price and then quality of wine, but then the 30 Years' War ravaged pretty much every part of the country. And it had a huge effect. Before this, there was 4 times the area of vineyards that there are today. In the 1800s, Napoleon conquered all of Germany to the west of the Rhine, and the vineyards were taken from the church and divided up. With industrialisation, the labour force moved into the cities and vineyards were now in real trouble. To try to counter this, the emphasis shifted to quality, and a famous wine law was passed in 1892, trying to make producers up their game. It wasn't perfect though, so it was revised in 1901, and in 1909, and again in 1930, and yet again in 1971. These laws introduced naming standards and insisted that wines were checked by committees for faults to earn permission to be labelled as a quality wine. One of the big things they were trying to overcome was producers who, rather than waiting for the grapes to ripen naturally, would harvest early and then chuck a bunch of sugar in. You won't be surprised to hear that this didn't have a good effect on the quality of the wine, so the 1971 version of the law introduced what's called the Predikat system. More terminology. Anyway, this was based on grape ripeness, and it ensured that the sweetness level in that initial grape juice was all 100% natural. Jamie's going to come back to that later to tell you how you can decipher these different labels. Good luck with that. Now, the first half of the 20th century was of course a period of serious crisis for German viticulture. With economic strain across the whole country, we've all seen the wheelbarrows full of cash. There were also some terrible vintages for weather, and I think something else might have happened, but I can't quite remember. Back in the 1930s, some of the merchants, particularly those selling to the UK, decided to focus on branding instead of complicated regions and vineyard names and so on. Instead, they mixed wines from different regions into semi-sweet, mass-produced blended wines like Liebfraumilch, which started to become immensely popular around the world. And from 1950 to 1990, the vineyard area started expanding rapidly again as German wine exports took off. They then started to work those vineyards really hard. Rather than growing a few highly flavoured grapes, the growers pushed the vines to produce more than 5 times as much weight of grapes than they did at the beginning of the century. That also didn't have a great impact on the quality. After 1970, there was considerable development and the new quality control laws came into effect. This did start to change things, and growers started to make some really incredible wine, and it became easier to tell the two different styles apart. However, those old sweet blends started to go out of fashion and certainly tarnished the reputation of German wine. So tonight we're going to let you try 6 much higher quality wines and show you how big the difference can be. These wines show off the dramatic places in which they grow because Germany is an incredibly dramatic country. It's somehow simultaneously flat and mountainous, rugged and smooth, green, rocky, hot, cold, wet, dry, misty, you get it all. Across 13 different wine growing regions you find very different soils and different climates. But even within these regions, the difference between going a few hundred metres around a bend on a river can produce a completely different temperature and a different flavour to the wine from the same grapes. On top of this, thousands of growers and winemakers shape the distinctive profiles of their wines into different quality categories and styles. And this means we have a lot to explore, because that is what guarantees the special, distinctive diversity of German wines. So what does Germany look like from a wine point of view? Well, apart from a few exceptions, it's mostly concentrated in the southwest, where the weather's slightly warmer. Germany is traditionally seen as a cool climate country for wine. Being in the north of Europe, there are moderate summer temperatures which traditionally produced lower alcohol wine. But with global warming, this is changing. Another defining fact of the country is that many of Germany's best and most famous vineyards are on incredibly steep slopes overlooking the rivers. Here, the only thing that's suitable to grow commercially is grapes. But these steep slopes, which gather the sun so well and give excellent drainage, are impossible to work on with tractors and automatic tools. Almost everything must be done by hand. So tonight, we're going on a tour of Germany, starting off in one of my favourite parts of the country, Baden, right down near the Swiss border and the home of the Black Forest. Here in this hotspot of food and wine, thermal energy boils up from deep under the Alps, powering vast numbers of incredible thermal spas. We then go east to Württemberg with its stunning castles and traditional villages centred around Stuttgart. For wine 3, we head west to the Pfalz region, home of the German wine route, with its climate so similar to Alsace. For wine 4, we head to Rheingau, one of the most distinguished wine regions of the world. This is on the south-facing slopes of the Rhine Valley near Mainz. Next we go to Rheingessen to see how an area that was most known for its bulk wines is now producing amazing value and quality before we return to Pfalz. Today we see wine increasing in popularity in Germany, especially in the young, and a new, funky natural wine scene is coming up. Even within family-run wineries, a younger, more global generation of winemakers are bringing in what they've learned and trying out new things, just to experiment and see what works well on these quite amazing sites. And it's working. Around the world, German wines are gaining greater and greater reputation and recognition for being truly world-class. So we've done history, geography, what grows where, and now hopefully you understand what the hock is going on. Dear God, Jamie. I need to start censoring these. Anyway, let's get back to the studio and see what you thought of wine number 1. And welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that little introduction. There are some absolutely beautiful landscapes in this country, aren't there? It's just so beautiful.
Did you bring that up because you felt you hadn't said landscapes enough in the video?
I did feel I hadn't said landscapes
Absolutely.
enough. That's because you'd written half it and put in terrible jokes. What the hock is going on? Goodness me. You say terrible. I say jokes, and people have different tastes, don't they? Different tastes. It's true.
But yeah,
there's some cool tasting notes on this wine, and I think people are really getting that real freshness and the zingy sort of acidity that, despite the fact that this is in the southernmost point of the region, the altitude's getting up a bit, and it's a little bit cooler again, so you can get that freshness, can't you?
But once again, we say it's very, very south. But as far as where you should be able to grow wine, Germany is very, very north. And I think that's very, very important to look at the styles of grapes that are growing, how they're growing. And, if you saw in the video, the terracing is what makes it happen. And you look at these slopes, you look at what's going on. And if any of you watch the wine show, there's one with Joe Fattorini trying to run up and down the, get some grapes. And it's there. And literally, if you I really feel that if you stand in the top of one of these vineyards and you had a little bit of a stumble, you'd be in the river before you knew it. It's like there's nothing stopping it. It's these beautiful, beautiful slate soils in a lot of places, lots of slate, but absolutely beautiful. But this is why the wine, the great wines are as great as they are, because it has to be all hand harvested. There's no machinery. You can't run a tractor up and down there.
So it's inherently going to be expensive. So if it's going to be expensive, you have to make really good wine. There's no sort of relying on, well, yeah, it's expensive, but it is German. That's not enough. But and I've been lucky to go to some really cool restaurants around the world, and the number of different ones where I get served a German wine, and quite often from this absolutely huge variety of different grapes that they grow. It's that diversity which comes from those different sites, and it's a very cool place.
Absolutely. So, but wine number 1, I think it's bright, fresh, it's quaffable, it's delicious, and it's a really just get yourself going kind of wine. So let's get wine number 2 in the glass, and straight away we can move over and get onto the set of tasting notes so we can get them straight in. And I think this is the epitome of sometimes why wines from different countries and different regions sometimes can be a bit scary and a bit difficult, because wine number 2 is a Grauburgunder. And if I had to put my hands up and say how many people have had a Grauburgunder, the number might be medium to low, even very low. But if I said the same question, how many people have had a Pinot Gris or a Pinot Grigio?
Yeah. Probably a few more.
But what is a Grauburgunder?
Well, so Burgunder is the grapes that came in from Burgundy, and that is the Pinot family. And so Grau is the German for grey, and grey Burgundy grape is Pinot Gris.
Oh, because Gris is
grey. Indeed, Gris and Grigio is great. So that is your grey. And when they say grey, it's a bit misleading, isn't it? Because it's
slightly pinky.
It's a pinky grey sort
and
of dusty colour.
That's why you can get a blush.
Yeah, you can. You can get a rosé blush Pinot Gris or Grauburgunder, and just by giving it a bit more time contact with those skins where it gets that colour from. So yeah, a really, really interesting wine. So it's got a little bit more of that sort of deeper character that you'd get from some of the red wine grapes. But how can this be the same thing as a Pinot Grigio from Italy? It almost doesn't compute, does it? It's completely mad.
No, there's some great notes going on, like pomegranate in there. It does have that kind of like red fruit characteristic, because you have that pinky skin that gives it those kind of flavours. Absolutely. Biscuity, it does have that lovely richness about it. And this is the Schneitman family, and they've been making wine for, if we take the last one, they've been making wine since 1985. Poor year. Not a good year, 1985.
We have a new producer behind the computer today. It is Dan, Jamie's brother, and he's doing a wonderful job. He was born in 1985.
So I'm just knocking in because Caroline's gone on holiday.
Yeah, slacking off on holiday or something.
She'll be back at some point, unless you put in the chat that you want Dan instead. So if I do glance away, it's because I'm hanging out in the chat with you guys to answer your questions as well with the laptop here.
But one of the big challenges of these German grapes is trying to work out what those different things are. So now we know that Grau Burgunder is a Pinot Grey, a grey Pinot, Pinot Gris, Pinot Grigio. You would expect that a Pinot Blanc, which is French for white, would be Weissburgunder, which is the German for white. And is that correct?
That is correct.
It
and
is.
There is one other one that we should probably know, but it's not so much about the colour of the grape, but when it ripens.
Well, indeed, because you'd expect Pinot Noir might be, Schwarzburgunder or something, but it is not. It is not Schwarzburgunder. In fact, it is two different things, isn't it?
It is, because there's two kind of clones of Pinot Noir that people talk about, and this is getting a little bit geeky.
Yeah.
But we've got Spätburgunder and we've got Frauburgunder, because they ripen either earlier or later.
Indeed.
And that's where we go with that. But that's enough about language, because it's a wine tasting and not a language class, and neither of us are qualified to do a language class. But we are trying to help you to get some kind of understanding of what on earth these things are when you pick them up, because I've ordered wines in restaurants that are German, and I'm thinking this would go brilliantly. Something turns up and it is completely not what I was expecting. Often it is sweet, and I'm thinking this is delicious, but it's not actually quite what I wanted with my pork. Absolutely. So anyway, this one we're in Württemberg, and once again, my apologies to anyone out there who wants to shout at my pronunciation, but I will try my very best.
This is right next to Baden, just to the east.
Absolutely. So these guys have been making wine in this area for about 500 years now. So they've been doing it for a little while. They used to just grow and sell their grapes off, and then decided they're going to start making their own wine. And it's, for me, it's got this great richness about it. It does have this smokiness. Grapefruit it's the overlying thing that's in there, and most people seem to be agreeing. But we do have this biscuit, this smoky, this nuttiness, which comes from this kind of ripeness of the grapes, and they have a little bit of skin contact with it.
Not sure I can understand the hand gestures.
James' mic's not. It's cutting in and out.
It's cutting in and out.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Let me move my mic around. My mic around.
Should we pick that thing off? Sorry about this. The usual.
My mic's
Right. Just pop it on.
I'm going to take this out of my pocket. And
hopefully we'll get a better connection, and the world will be a good place.
There we go. We've got to teach Dan his hand signal so we understand what he means.
Right, it seems to be splitting opinions, which is always the wonderful sort of thing about wines. And this is a completely unusual flavour. I mean, it's not Alsatian. It's more towards that sort of Alsace
style of things, but it's
got
its
this
own character.
nuttiness. It's really cool. It's really interesting. But I can see how this is a bit of a Marmite wine that you will love it or hate it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be too many people that go, that's just okay. But it is organic for those who like a little bit of organic, and that's what it is. So, yeah. Have we got anything in the chat that I've missed?
So Württemberg, it's sort of Württemberg is around Stuttgart, and obviously down there, it's just it's another beautiful part of the world, and you've just got all these castles and sort of fairy tale villages, and and of course you've also got fast cars there because that's the home of Mercedes-Benz and all of those kind of things. So yeah, it's strange to get this mixture of industry with the Rhine and also to have these beautiful little perfectly preserved villages. And one of the things that they do in this Baden and Württemberg region is making lots and lots of schnapps. And I said we used to drink quite a lot of it, but there's an astonishing figure, which is that there are 30,000 distilleries just in the Baden and Württemberg region where you can bring your own fruit in and you can turn it into your own pear schnapps, apple schnapps, or whatever it is. And so there's a real sort of hobby industry. So it's a group of people who love to make their own drinks.
So does that mean we're inviting anyone who's got a lot of apples to come and hang out with us, and we're going to go down there and make our own?
That sounds good to me. That sounds excellent.
I think that's a phenomenal plan. So that's a great idea.
I've stayed with a family who were down there, and they brought out this. It looked like a sort of an old apothecary, sort of with all these big glass bottles of bright different colours, and some absolutely astonishingly sort of bold flavours, and some slightly drunken.
So
nights.
there's a great note here in the chat, and it's the wine is like an Alsace Pinot Gris with some funkiness, with a note on there that don't know if I love it. I think the last note we'll make on this before we move on to wine number 3, this kind of wine, I think this would be a different world if you had a bit of food with it. Is this something that I would sit and drink 2-3 glasses of? No, it's got that bit of funkiness, that bit of oomph about it. I think this would be a really cool wine, when we all get back out into wine bars and restaurants and stuff like that. If this was a half glass on a tasting menu, I'd go, that's really cool, that's really fun. So something
I'd be tempted as well to say
different.
it's what they, a lot of geeky wine people say is a little bit reductive, which benefits from just a bit of time swirling around in your glass and reacting with that oxygen to soften some of those smokier flavours that you might get. So yeah, give it a good swill around, capture that air and give it another try. And just imagine you're having it with something that the acidity will cut through beautifully.
But this is the joy of wine. The joy of wine is everybody loved the same wines. We'd have one red, one white, and it'd be all very boring. There'd be no point having tastings like this to try new things and different things. So, our job isn't to tell you what you should like, shouldn't like, what the best wine is. Our gig here is to have a bit of fun, give you some wines, tell you a little bit about it, and hopefully guide you to, your next great glass of wine that you want to drink. So if you do like something, let's work out what it is that you like about it. And if you don't like something, let's go, well, we don't like it because of this and this and this, so you steer clear of that going forward.
There's an awful lot of people who are working on very clever projects like algorithms using artificial intelligence which can tell you which wines you'd like. Well, I don't think people work like that.
I do. They told me I'd like Riesling.
Well, it's like, are you a sommelier? Yes, you like Riesling. That's pretty much the equation there. Even I can work that one out. But ultimately, the best way to do this is to
blanket
try
an entire profession there. Well done, Taylor.
It's not inaccurate, though, is it? No.
I like a Charebe as well.
Yeah, but we'll move on to that one in a little bit. But it's the best way to decide whether you like something is to try it. And I love the fact that someone says it goes well with fruitcake. You're a fruitcake.
All right, on that note, let's get on to wine number 3. So this is Wiegmüller, and we are heading to the Pfalz now. Can we say it's no Pfalz our own? Or is this
Shall we have Jamie's question?
Oh, well, let's get 3 in the glass. We'll do my question, because I talked a little bit about the blue nun earlier. So, blue nun, black tout, all those kind of things. Because sometimes it can be a bit of an elephant in the room. There's lots of wines that have this sometimes bit of stigma, whether it's the barefoots, whether it's the yellowtails, whether it's the whatevers. But, going through the 50s, 60s, 70s, Blue Nun in the States got this massive, massive reputation for being a really great quality wine. And it was selling the same price as second growth Bordeaux's. So they really peaked out once again. 1985 was their peak year. Well, so it was a good year for Blue Nun, not such a good year for other things. I will bully him all night because he's not going to come back again. But the question is, in 1985, how many cases of Blue Nun were sold worldwide? So I'm not looking for bottle numbers, I'm looking for full cases sold worldwide. So we'll give everyone
that's a case of 6 bottles, just to be clear. I'm assuming we're standardising on 6.
We're standardising on 6.
Very good.
So if I say case, I say 6. So what do we got up here? We've got 2 millions, we've got 5 millions.
Yeah.
So this is interesting because these numbers are very, very high for everyone who go, oh, I never did.
I think they know that a lot of people did drink it though, and we've all been there. But perhaps while people are getting their guesses in, should we have a little bit of a chat about some of the things that have been happening in the world of wine this week?
We could indeed. It's a little bit of wine news. So the question I'm going to ask you then about the wine news. When is champagne not a champagne? Because you can only call it champagne if it's grown in Champagne in France.
Yeah.
Correct?
Apart from a few places in America where there's various exceptions have been sort of held in. But ultimately, there is this global system of trying to protect different names. And actually, that's what we're talking a lot about today because it's a bit geeky and a bit boring sounding. But this is really important. You wouldn't expect to go and buy a bottle of wine that was made in Ukraine and call it champagne. But indeed, that's what they did back in the 1950s and 60s. Champagne protect that now. They say it has to be grown in Champagne. It has to be made according to a set of rules, and then it can be called champagne. You can't make it in England. But Mr. Putin has had a bit of a change of heart on this now. And so the law that has come out in Russia this week is that you can only call it champagne if it's made in Russia. And you can't call it champagne if it's made in Champagne, which makes sense. But there we are.
So watch out for your Russian champagne.
Yeah.
It may not be coming from where you expect it to come from.
If you see something in Cyrillic that says Champoinsky, then that's probably not our typical classical.
Classic, what our expectations might be.
Exactly.
So, but classifications.
Yeah.
Sometimes important, sometimes less so.
And the French are the biggest defenders of these classifications, aren't they?
They are, absolutely. Whether it's about your Cornish pasty or your cottage cheese or your whatever Bordeaux, it is, or your
Burgundy.
Champagne, your Bordeaux, your Burgundy, your Chablis style wines.
Yeah.
But sometimes that leads to little groups and little people being able to push the price up and stuff like that. And Italy, the 70s, they, in Tuscany, they decided, there was a few breakaways because you had to be made with Sangiovese and that's all it was. And then these people jumped out and go, well, we can grow some Cabernet Sauvignon. So we got the Super Tuscans.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing in France right now is in Bordeaux, there's a region called Saint-Emilion, and they make some of, I feel, the best Bordeaux in the world. And they've got this classification system with their Premier Cru Classés, whatever. And 2 of the top houses there have decided they don't want to play that game anymore.
Yeah.
So Chateau Cheval Blanc and Chateau Ausson have decided that they want to pull away from the Saint-Emilion classification.
So they won't be able to call themselves a Saint-Emilion Grand Cru Classé anymore, which is...
They will not.
Traditionally, you'd see is that's a really good thing to be able to shout about, but they think their brand is strong enough on its own, and they're not going to pay these people to go off.
Be in the club.
Be in the club. Saying,
so does that make them the most expensive table wine in France?
Perhaps it is. Are they a Vin de France? They might be. I don't know.
They could well be. They could well be.
So all happening in the world of what you can call your wine this week.
And our final point, and we're going to do it very quickly to not blow our own trumpet, but Deborah Fleming, big shout out to Deborah Fleming, and thank you for mentioning our packaging, because for those who have been with us from the beginning, we've had our trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
But we were very, 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 very lucky and honoured 2 weeks ago to get into London for the International Wine Challenge, and we were awarded Innovator of the Year for what we're doing with wine tastings and packaging and all that kind of stuff. And it's, we got to have our picture taken with Oz Clarke, so we're cool now.
Yeah, and we're
Or
also
something like
we're
that.
doing the packaging for one of his tastings of some Stellenbosch Cabernet in a couple of weeks' time, so that's going to be really cool. But it's been a huge amount of work, and we're just really relieved, and we wouldn't be here without your support. So thank you.
If people weren't
Thank you.
buying these packs and telling us that it was great or bad or indifferent at the beginning, we wouldn't have been able to change it and fix it or whatever. But without us going through this little party sob story of the world about we got a trophy and we like a trophy, thank you very much. So the answer is, people thought there was a lot of Blue Nun, didn't they?
5 million
Well,
cases.
everyone knew it wasn't 10, because
Yeah.
and it's not a silly question that 1985 they didn't make any, because that would be mean. The actual answer was 2 million cases, of which 1.25 million of it was in the US.
Wow.
Which is amazing. So
Imagine a lot of the rest of it was the UK. Probably.
yeah, and probably not very much in Germany at all.
probably not,
I wouldn't be
no.
surprised. But Blue Nun these days, they now they do all kind of flavors. They do a prosecco with gold and all that kind of stuff in there. So anyway, we're talking too much because we need to drink a little bit more.
Yeah.
We've got to get our tasting notes in the Shirobe, but I would talk to you a bit about it. But I was lucky enough to talk to Gabby over at Weingut. So we'll go to her. We'll do that. If you drink all your Shirobe during this interview, get on to wine number 4, because we'll talk Riesling when we get back.
But don't worry, it's not too long. Anyway, enjoy it.
Herzlich willkommen im Weingut Wegmüller. Zum Wohl!
So, my name is Gabriele Wegmüller, and I spell it Gabriele because Gabriele is the German word for my first name, and it's very difficult to pronounce normally. And my sister and me, we had run the winery now for 40 years almost. And my sister Stephanie, she was one of the first or the first female winemaker ever in Germany. She started to do her wine business by herself in '84. She got an apprenticeship at Baden and Württemberg, and there she was from 77 to 79. And then from 81 to 82, no, 80 to 82, 2 years she was at Weinsberg and studied wine technical business. And then she came to our winery in 82. And in 84, she started to do our wines. And I came to join her in 88. She asked me if I would love to, she needs somebody for the office, she told me. And then I said, well, let's try. I don't know how it works with two sisters. And now we were not only sisters, but we worked together 33 years this year. And I think that's a good point to say, yes, you can be sisters, of course, you are sisters, and you can work also together. And the winery is around about 15 hectares big. Well, built up, it's been the roots going back to 1685. The first Wegmüller came around 1650 from Switzerland and to Germany. And the first known then for the winery, the first vineyard is written down on 1685. And we do have around about 15 hectares. Most of it is Riesling, more than 50%. And then The second one is now already the Scheurebe. And then you have Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris. We do have Müller-Thurgau. We have a little bit of Kerner. We have quite a bit of red wine grapes. Also, we do have Pinot Noir and Merlot. This is, as I told yesterday, the second most planted grape variety at our winery. And we have now a Scheurebe dry version, and it's got around about 7-8 sugar, natural sugar, and 7-6 acidity, vintage 2020, and it's marvelous. The taste is very similar to Sauvignon Blanc. We have a fruity type of grapefruit, a little bit of lime juice, and mandarin in the nose, with a great finish, and it's perfect to Asian food, and also, of course, for nice summer wine.
It is. It's lovely. It's bright. It's fresh. There's wonderful, wonderful acidity in it.
It's very crisp.
Feel it running.
Yeah, and you have to do. You have a nice balance between the acidity and the sugar as well. Yeah,
absolutely. And so this grape is not really grown anywhere else. It's very much a German grape, isn't it?
In Germany you will find this grape variety only in Franken, where it's in Rheingessen, where it's actually born. A man called Mr. Scheu, Dr. Scheu, who was the one who created this grape variety. And it's now more than 105 years ago. 2016, the Scheurebe celebrated 100 years Scheu.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
fantastic. No,
and you find it as well in the Pfalz, of course. You find it in Saxon and in Franken as well. Nice day. Thank you to talking to you.
Absolute pleasure, and
welcome back. Great to see you're enjoying this wine. I think it's absolutely delicious, and so sad that this family tradition is not going to continue in their family. I just hope that whoever comes in keeps with their Scheurebe and still makes this, because that's absolutely delicious and great tasting notes from everybody. The lychee and the orange, and what she said in the video. She said blood orange and something. Didn't
exactly
she?
the same. Blood orange and mandarin were the two things we talked about. But there's a couple of good points in there. Andrew popped in about how many facts and dates, and it was amazing to try and get the entire history from the 1600s to present day in about 3.5 minutes with nothing missed. It was quite intense. But it's 11 generations of winemaking and family, and that passion comes in that they've been doing it. The two sisters have been doing it since the 80s together. It's really kind of a really, really cool story.
It's a great story. I love it, and just so good. And I think people are talking a little bit about the fact that you've got all these really ripe fruity flavors, a little bit sort of heading towards nectarine, that's sweet orange. But is it sweet or is it just fruity? Now it says Trocken, which we ought to know. If you see Trocken on a German wine label, that means dry, right?
Technically, yes, but technically no, because it depends where you're at. So,
because Germany is difficult.
It's not difficult. You just got to learn lots of things. It's not quite as straightforward. So, what we're going to do is we're going to do a very, very kind of bare bones of it, okay?
Yep.
Because if I did the deep bones of it, we'd be here till 4 p.m. tomorrow, and you'd never log on again. So, Germany, you can make wine wherever you want in Germany. And if it's just made, it's wherever. It's what's called a Landwein, so that's the same as a table wine. And they had lots of different kind of rules and regulations as they tried to improve the quality of wine. But it was really 1971 is when they brought in this Predikat system. So when you go into what are the quality wines of Germany, there's a level called Qualitätswein, which is a quality wine which has to be from one of the 13 wine growing regions, whether it's Baden, Rheingessen, Rheingau, etc., etc. So it has to be on there. And at that level, you can choose to label it Trocken as dry, or Halbtrocken, which is technically half dry but is off dry. Trocken, with this wine, the Scheurebe in particular, it's got about 6.5 grams of sugar in it. So a Sauvignon Blanc has, if we're Sancerre, we're generally a couple of grams. But you know, this is as dry.
Marlborough might have a little bit more.
But this is the same level as a Brut Champagne or something like that. So it's still a dry wine, and it's all about balance. So you're still technically a dry wine when we get into that. Once you have Qualitats wine, you then have the option to be in what's called the Predicat system. And this is where you might have seen in this opening video, there's all these words like Cabernet Auslese, Spätlese, Trockenbeer and Auslese, all those kind of fun things. And what that's got to do with is, and I think most people are probably going to get onto wine number 4 on the Riesling now, so we should probably slide the tasting notes onto wine number 4 so we can dive into that. So what you've got in that level is it's not about the sweetness of the wine. It's about what's called the weight of the grape must. So that's how much sugar is in the grape at harvest. And then you've got these levels, Cabernet being the least amount of sugar, going up to Trockenbeer and Auslese, which is the most amount of sugar. The 2 top levels have to have some botrytis, which makes these sweet dessert wines.
And the grapes all shrivel up into.
And the grapes shrivel up. And if anyone saw that lovely picture that Caroline got for our photo for our website for the tasting, that's kind of, they're all Riesling. All those grapes are Riesling. It's absolutely amazing. So it's about sugar. But what you can do with sugar, you've got 2 things you can do. You can ferment it, and if you ferment the sugar, you get alcohol. So you can get lots of alcohol and use all the sugar and have a dry wine, or you can not ferment it all the way, have less alcohol, but have a sweet wine, even in the different levels. So you can have Spätlese wine that is actually drier than a Cabernet wine, which is technically less sugar because it's fermented further and the Cabernet's fermented less. So your clues are, if you look at a German wine in a certain style, if the alcohol's lower, it's going to be sweeter. If the alcohol's higher, it's going to be less sweet. And that's kind of the base of it. So this is Gutenberg, Via Gutenberg, Via, that's not very German, is it? Villa Gutenberg.
But yeah.
I went a bit Spanish there. So this is from the Rheingau. And the Rheingau has some of the oldest wine growing vineyards. That's the word I was looking for. Vineyards in all of Germany.
And they're just, so this is a point where the river goes from west to east. Well, probably actually, it might not be that way. No, it's going to be east from west for the way it runs, the water's running. But anyway, looking at the way you would read the map, this is what you did with the French one, isn't it? The Loire. But if you go west along the river, the north of this valley, it has these incredibly steep slopes that you've seen in the intro video, and they basically act like the way that you angle your solar panels to catch that sunshine, and all the water just drains away, which means that the vines are a little bit more stressed, and that sounds like a bad thing, but actually it means that you get more quality because it concentrates those flavours. If the vine has everything it needs to grow, it makes massive fat berries that taste of nothing. So it goes along, and on the east side of this is Mainz, which is the sort of big town in the region.
Absolutely. So there's some people jumping in there, and some great notes. Honey. I like the fact that people want to buy cases of this, and that is amazing. You can buy it all from the website. Buy as many gallons of this as you like. I think it's delicious. It's drinkable. It's got some sweetness there. It absolutely does, and you can't.
Can I have some?
No. I'm saving it all for the people in the chat who want to buy
enough.
it.
Okay.
Fine.
I'm sure they'd love to have a half-open bottle of.
But there's a couple of people who go, "Oh, this is kind of dessert winey-ish." I get that, that theory because of where it is compared to the other wines we've tried. Dessert wines, you're generally starting at 90, 100 grams of sugar per litre. This sits at 46, so it's definitely up there. It's definitely in this off-dry. But if we looked at if you see kind of that grading 1 through 7, from 1 being very, very dry to 7 being very, very sweet, you're probably only a 3 or 4 on this because you have to grade all the wines in all the world. And I once had a Trockenbeer and Auslese, which is the top level of sweetness, and it was a Riesling, not from Germany but from Austria, 282 grams of sugar per litre. So that's
unbelievable.
A lot of sweetness.
Probably comes with a sugar drink tax on it.
Absolutely. So if we look at our general everyday drinking wine that we see as a table wine, this is definitely pushing the sweetness level. But it's when you you dial it down to how much sugar's actually in there, it's not dessert wine sweet.
I did just stick my tongue in. I'm sorry, that's probably looks a bit disgusting, but it's just that way of trying to sort of get the sugar, the concentration of the sugar you get from that. But yeah, it's tough when you look at a Riesling on a wine list in a restaurant. They might not say this is 9.5% alcohol, and so you don't have anything to go by. So if you're in that situation, and it doesn't say Trockenbeeren Auslesen or TBA or, so it starts off. Let's just go through those one more time. The starting point's Cabernet.
Cabernet.
Yeah.
Spätlese.
Spätlese. Okay.
Auslese.
Okay.
Beeren Auslese.
Uh-huh.
Trockenbeeren Auslese. Specially selected dried berries.
Yeah, so for these, they're literally, people are going out, up and down those steep slopes.
Picking
and
raisins.
Finding individual raisins and bringing them back to the winery and pressing
Giving them a squeeze.
It's crazy.
There's
also ice wine, isn't there?
There is also ice wine. And ice wine has, a certain sugar level it has to be at, but it sits a little bit different because of the processing. It's got to be minus 8 degrees out in the middle of the night to pick it. So it does have a sweetness level. It's a sweetness level between Beeren Auslese and Trockenbeeren Auslese, but you've got a different processing technique to add to the rules and regulations to be able to call yourself a ice wine.
And it's getting harder and harder because it doesn't get -8 degrees,
cold enough
frequently enough. Unfortunately, these days, that's the downside to global warming. But it does still happen every now and then, and that is why it's so expensive, because you get all of these grapes and they produce a tiny amount of juice because the bulk of what was there was water, and that stays frozen in the press.
Am I allowed to interrupt you again?
Yes.
There's a wonderful point here as, would this stand up well to spicy food? The answer is yes, 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 yes again, and also yes. Yeah. I usually say yes, but no. Riesling is a phenomenal grape for spicy food. Two things: it's got acidity, which is hugely helpful. It's got that little bit of sweetness, which is great against the spice. But also the big thing that spicy food does is it exacerbates the level of alcohol. So if you have something that's high in alcohol, it will taste even higher in alcohol. So if you pick something like, what's this? 9.5%.
Yeah.
So you're only 9.5% on here. So it will do very, very well with a spicy food. It will have that cooling effect. And as the spice pushes the feeling of alcohol up, you're not going up to, you're not going from a 14% Chardonnay and that feeling hotter, or a 16% Zinfandel and it going up.
Yeah, if you paired that 16% Zinfandel, it's going to burn. You're going to really feel that alcohol.
But sometimes when you look at spicy food, unless you're going for a blow your head off curry, if if people are using things like green chili and stuff like that as a flavourful kind of thing, the aromatics in this, the peach, the mango, those tropical fruits just really pair really well. So not only scientifically is it a good match, flavour-wise, it works really, really well. Something like this with like a pad thai or something beautiful. Happy days.
It was funny because I intended to order a dry Riesling when I was last in Switzerland. We were in a Thai restaurant in the thermal spa hotel that we were in, and it was a beautiful, beautiful Thai meal that came out, and the wine came out. And why is everything falling over today?
No. Because you took the trophy out.
It must be. And this wine came out, and I tasted it. I was like, well, I wasn't expecting that. What I should have done is asked the sommelier, because they will tell you. But actually, they'd have probably told me, go for that one. In fact, they looked at me and go, good choice there, because it came out this slightly off dry one, and it was beautiful with Thai foods, and it didn't overpower it. And
so
it worked.
I know we've got 2 wines left. So let's get on to wine 5 and 6. They're behind you, so you can grab them. But there's a question here about Riesling and petrol. So I'm going to cover that very, very quickly. For those who really want to know about Riesling and petrol, on our adventurous series next week, Alex is actually doing a whole thing,
it's only a couple of minutes.
Well, his whole thing about why we have this petrol thing in Riesling and the tech behind it. So there's a lot of people go, oh, Riesling smells and tastes like petrol. I learned gasoline because that's where I learned my wine skills. And what there's this chemical compound called TDM. And
Do you know what that stands for?
Make me look like an idiot right now. Go on then.
Trimethyl Dihydro. Oh bollocks! I've forgotten it. Pardon me.
So
Naphthalene. Trimethyl dihydronaphthalene, and I have no idea what that means.
So this is why we call it TDN.
Yeah.
So we Riesling sometimes is associated with this petrol-y thing. Some people think, and there's a couple of theories behind it, and we will go through the theories next week. But some people say it comes with age, and generally when you've got an older Riesling, you can have a little bit more age to it, and you get that petrol-y kind of this. But it also comes from stress of the grapes. So you'll get, if a grape, gets sunburnt because there's been too much going on and whatever, it can add to this. But the weird thing about it is you can have a very young wine that has this kind of petrol-y kind of nose on. You leave it for 3 years and open it, no petrol. And then you open it another 6 years later into an old Riesling and it comes back again. So it kind of disappears, almost like, bottle shock. You can have these wines that are great when they're young, then they die for like 5 years. There's nothing to happen, and then they come back to life.
Wine's weird.
So wine is weird and funky, but yeah, generally you can talk a lot about these petrol notes, but you find them a lot in older wines, and also you find them in the grapes that have been higher up the slopes where they've had that and they've had longer ripening seasons, so they've been, where they've had, a lot of the canopy cut back, so you get a lot of UV coming in. But that is probably a little bit techie for this evening. So what we decided to do with our reds, so if you've got 2 glasses...
I advise getting 2 side by side, and so Caroline, before she went off on holiday to Cornwall, she set us a little challenge again. She said it's going to be one of our usual little challenges, wine versus wine, who's done a better job of picking. So there are the imported grapes that the monks brought in from Burgundy, like the Spätburgunder or Pinot Noir. Is that the right one? Yes, Fru is the early ripening, or Pinot Noir Précoce, the precocious Pinot Noir. So there are the ones that were brought in, but these are noble grapes. And then there are the ones that the Germans created in laboratories, and they sat there and they did this back in the sort of 50s, 60s, 70s, crossing grapes with each other and trying to find different variants of grapes that would work particularly well in their own climate. And the question is, what works better? Does Germany make the classic noble grapes like Pinot Noir, or does it make the ones that were actually designed for it? Now, I happen to think, because I've drunk quite a bit of English Dornfelder, I think Pinot Noir is the way to go.
Yeah, but if I said what's the best grape in Ireland, what's the best grape in the Antarctic, you would say Pinot Noir.
Say Pinot Noir.
So you can go with this. So this is the Louis Guntram Pinot Noir, and we're going to put this up against the Villa Wolf Dornfelder. So the Villa Wolf, I think, is great. So Dornfelder was created 1956. It was created.
Okay.
If you want to know that.
Look at the colour difference. That's crazy.
So It's a hybrid grape, but it's a hybrid of hybrids. So I will very quickly say that it's Helfensteiner crossed with Herald Rebe, but both of those grapes are also crosses from other grapes. So it's a cross of a cross within a cross. So we're just going to call it Dornfelder.
Yeah, basically. Who cares?
There's a really good Dornfelder over near Reading at Stanlake Park.
Yeah, actually, that was one of the better ones I've tried. Yeah. That was really
quite good.
Yeah.
What's cool about Villa Wolf? They've been around for a while, but since the 70s, they've been owned by one of my favourite Riesling producers, Dr. Lucen.
Dr. Lucen
owns Villa Wolf, who makes some really cool stuff. So that's there and about. But let's get sipping. Let's get trying. Have we got the tasting notes up for wine number 5, so people can. I think
we do. Yeah, wine number 5's up.
And the line is, I would say vote for your favourite, but he wins too many of these, and at some point I'm not going to come back anymore. So, but yeah, so this. It's light, it's fresh, it's easy drinking. It does exactly what it says on the tin. And this is in the Rheingessen, yes?
It is, yeah. So, which is the place in Germany that produced, it's the flat bit south of the Rheingau. So the Rheingau's on the north bank.
And that's about as north as you get for wine production, isn't it, really, the Rheingau? The air is a little bit further ahead, but...
It's up sort of about it's not that far, like, latitude from the Pfalz, actually, but it sits around there, and it's... Sorry, I'm not being very clear here. So you've got the Rheingessen, Rheingau, which is just north of the river, and the
Rheingessen, which is just south of the river, and it's a big flat bit. And that was generally where they just made lots and lots and lots of cheap, easy drinking bulk wine. And the biggest part of the wine that is made in Germany still just goes into what they call bulk wine. It gets sort of piled up and put into the cheapest possible things. It's kind of astonishing for such a big industrial company to have all this valuable land, and they make the cheapest wine that goes off and sells for 20 cents a litre. But this is the sign that the Rheinhessen is really starting to reinvent itself and to find those little spots that do particularly well. And I think this is that sort of interesting, nice cross between a sort of a French Pinot Noir and almost a Californian Pinot Noir. It sort of sits nicely in the middle, and I like both of those. So that's a good place to be.
And I think it's important when we talk about things like the Rheinhessen that we can make these blanket statements about a region. You go wherever you go and you can go, oh, that's where they make the cheap wines. But there's always these little pockets that there's someone doing something quite special.
Yeah.
And that one of my, you talk South Africa, you go inland. Once you go inland and it gets hot, it's bulk wines because it's rich. But you end up, one of my favourite producers is Olifantsberg, in the Olifantsberg Mountains, because they've got these hillsides there and it's these little pockets within, and you find these great little places that are phenomenal. So look.
That is a fantastic wine. It's got, just to go a little bit geeky, what you can tell is there's a slightly bubble gum and sort of a lighter cherry kirsch liqueur-like flavour that's coming through on the nose in particular. And that is from the fact that they've...
Are you saying that, or are you just copying people's tasting
I'm not
notes?
copying people's tasting. I can't read them. I can see cherry, but that's the fundamental thing you get from this process, where rather than normally when you take a red wine and you crush the grapes and you take them off the stems in a big industrial machine, and that allows the juice to get out and the yeast to get to the juice and start fermenting it. But what they've done, I think, with this is reserve a certain portion of the grapes as a whole bunch, and they just put the bunches in. While
you're talking tech, why is it 14%? Why is Germany making a 14% Pinot Noir? Why is it
hot? It's a hot place. This is the thing that we get. This is the flat, lower altitude part of it, and it just gathers the heat. And seriously, some of the German summers are really, really hot. Their winters are cold, but their summers are very hot. And you can find 14% alcohol in Burgundy now, and this is a lot way further south, isn't it? So, yeah, I think it's great. But I ultimately, this is the choice of the experts at home. So
well, let's move on to number 6, so I can see some number 6 tasting notes. It's all about your tasting notes.
Okay, just let me have a quick look. So earthy, it's a little
cherry,
bit of
smoky, earthy.
So you've got that balance.
Delicious.
The fruit, which is sort of old, New World, and the
thin, chalky, unbalanced, metallic, harsh, baby sham. Those are your tasting notes. How about my wine? Let's go to wine number 6. Come on, move it on. Because this for me, it's rich, it's decadent, it's designed for the region. So we're back in the Pfalz here.
Yeah, but it's designed for Germany in the 1950s, and there's lots changed.
And it's designed for me in 2021. Because I now have my 31 Rieslings.
All right, I have not tried this, so I'm going to try this, and I'm going to try open-minded.
This, however, was not this. Or the Pinot Noir was on the table at IWC Awards as a medal winner. So it's.
Oh, interesting. I think the other smell that you can get with that whole bunch thing is banana, and I'm getting a bit of banana from that. So I think they've done a bit of whole bunch in this. There you go. So the cool thing about whole bunch, I normally reserve this, is that it's not the yeast that's turning it into alcohol at first. You've got a totally different process going on. It's enzymes, and that produces these different flavours. So you get more complexity. It turns out I don't like bananas very much, so...
Someone has said it's the first time they agree with Alex's pick. Alex wins. We're not at the voting yet.
This is quite sweet, Jamie.
36.5 grams.
36.5 grams of sugar in a red wine. Is that more or less than the
average
59 crimes or whatever it's called in the supermarket? That's quite a lot of sugar. But it's decadent.
It's delicious, isn't it? It's quaffle, it's rich, it's delightful.
We all like to think we don't like sugar, but of course we do. There's a reason we like desserts.
To be honest, this is this when I taste a wine that I want to talk about structure and elegance and layers of complexity.
No.
No. Is this, I've had a long day and I just want to drink something? Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's very interesting. I don't want to have that with food.
Okay, good, because you haven't got any.
I haven't got any.
So that wins them. Done. So
that's not what it's about. The question is which is best.
I'm going to follow up the chat so we can get some more bits and pieces in. But should we get into the voting?
We could do. We definitely could do. But both really different wines. And Pfalz is a beautiful region.
I love that. I feel I should be wearing a velvet cape with number 6 as it's huge and gorgeous. Boom. You should be writing tasting notes for the back of the bottles.
Yeah, but Pinot Noir or Dornfelder, dude.
Okay, apparently the poll thing's gone back to number 4.
Okay. Hopefully, I'm going to have a look onto my phone, see if that's working now, because we've told it to move on. Oh, no.
That's it. It's finished.
Jamie.
No,
Yes.
Jamie the Dornfelder.
Oh, my goodness me. Come on. Oh! This is
I can see this from here. It's live. It's 60-40.
It's like a penalty shootout.
No, it's not. Okay,
Voting for a Dornfelder is...
Oh, it's 50-50. I'm going to get very upset here.
No, you're not. Yeah, but the thing is that Jamie didn't even realise this was a soft, dry wine when he ordered it. He'd tried it, but it was. It's.
So I like it on me on the laps here. That it's
Yeah. No, I mean they're both cracking wines. But I think that in terms of value, I would value the Guntram at more than the Villa Wolf. But I would drink both of them on different occasions. This is tight. Oh my goodness.
Just call it a draw. So someone's looking for favouritism as we go forward in the world.
Yeah, well, oh my word. This may be the closest yet. Okay, I'm very worried now. But, yeah, I mean, Dornfelder, one of the things that biased me against it was that I did something that's called fining trials. And fining is, we often get asked, why would a wine not be vegan? And when you've made a red wine, you end up with quite a lot of the sort of harshness sometimes at first if you're not too careful. And particularly with a grape that's got a very dark skin like Dornfelder, you end up with a very harsh wine. And so a lot of this process is fining, is trying to put in some little kind of bits into the wine which then take that harshness out of it. And sometimes they use things like egg whites, so that's why you might not find a wine is necessarily vegan. But the egg white isn't in the wine. But I did that with a raw, unfined, unfiltered Dornfelder, and my mouth just ended up coated with this black stuff. It was disgusting. That was my sort of rude awakening into the world of winemaker. It's like, don't concentrate on how it is now, concentrate on how it can be and how to get it to where it wants to be. And so, yeah.
Absolutely.
But
so
I do think...
Should we move on to wine of the night before we announce the
Yeah,
results?
I feel that we may need to do that. So... the wine of the night. Well done, Jamie.
Well, to be fair, I do not... If I had to hazard my guess as people put these votes in, I do not think that either of the Reds will win wine of the night.
Interesting. Well, it's all very neck at the moment.
It
Well,
is.
I mean, so
Well, I've got this in front of me. I get a bit excited by it, so I'm going to have to get this off. I'm going to get back to talking to people.
another vote for the wine number one. Oh, the Schreber doing very well.
So I've got some.
That was fantastic.
I've got some bad news, Schreber lovers.
Yeah.
We haven't got any. We're waiting for a new shipment. The very last bottle of it was this bottle here. So and this morning I tasted with Gabby as we did our interview and kind of that is it. But there is more on the way. There is more on the way. So as soon as it comes, we will let you all know.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we found that over the last few months, wine supplies have been very, very tight. It's been very hard to get hold of a lot of the wines that we thought we were able to get hold of. And part of it is that we've had a bad few years vintage-wise in terms of in Europe. Lots of hail, lots of frost, lots of bad things that have affected the production. Like Marlborough, Sauvignon Blanc, production's massively down. And it all gets mopped up by the big guys, by the supermarkets. So it's quite hard. When you turn around and you say, we want to put wine in front of 400 people, That's tough. That's tough for a lot of the guys. They have to start re-importing it, and that means packing up pallets full of stuff and getting it over.
So a question I don't know the answer to,
Yeah.
and you might.
All right, I'll give it a go.
Any oak on the Pinot?
I believe there is, and I think
it would be second or third use. I think it's old oak. Alex is going to check this.
I'm going to check this because I believe there was.
Once again, I think there is, but I don't want to guarantee things, because if we guarantee things, people will take it as gospel and kind of move through with it.
Yes, I did. I remember this because I did that. So it's aged in a combination of 225 litre, which is that sort of barrel, and also some larger barriques. But they use a little bit of new oak and mostly older oak, like you say. But yeah, there's a bit of oak in there, and very careful, very gentle winemaking.
Absolutely,
Which is why I should have
absolutely. So we're kind of moving this through. We'll give everyone like 10 more seconds, but it's scary. Look
That's
at that.
hilarious.
The Dornfelder.
Dornfelder.
The Dornfelder, for
So
Germany
the German
being famous
grape has
for its
been
white
won
wine.
by
The German grape.
Yeah.
So let's move on, because we've got a couple of other things. Because while we talk about next month, we are going to Argentina, which is very, very exciting. So we're doing next week. For those who have loved this and you want to go an even deeper dive into Germany, we're doing all things Riesling.
So you'll get to try some of those.
31 Rieslings to be happy. It's the 31 days of German Riesling. It's my favourite time of the year. I've got my tattoo now, so I'm good to go. But yeah, we're going to do 6 regions from very, very dry to very, very sweet. We're going to go through Cabernet, Spätlese, Auslese, all that kind of stuff from the Nahe, stuff from Rheingau, stuff from
and some older stuff as well.
And some stuff from 2013, with some lights from 2013. So there's some really cool stuff. We've only got about 35 packs of that left. It's been mental, because we've only had a certain amount of wine available. So if you want to dive in that. And then what else have we got going on? So we've got Argentina next month, and then
we're doing the Pinot Masterclass.
We're doing a Pinot Masterclass for our Adventure series, and then in September we are doing Back to School.
Yes.
So we are going to have 6 wines related to 6 subjects. So we're working out at the moment, but we may well do history with some Arcatatelli from Georgia, the oldest grapes in the world. We may do some physics with a gravity press winery. We may do some chemistry with some wines that do flash d'étang or something like that. Ooh. So we're going to do 6 wines, 6 subjects. For those of you who have then got the kids back to school, you can hang out with us and learn a little bit more.
I can see you voting there for some Albarino.
For those who haven't got the kids back to school, you can come and learn with us. So that will be kind of fun.
Yeah, that would be a really fun night.
So
but it's your club, so I'm not sure what we're going to get from like Papua New Guinea there, but I'm definitely seeing there's some votes for India. India do make some wine. They make quite a lot of wine, in fact.
There is some votes for America.
There are some big votes for America. And so, that's Chile. We've done Chile, but we could do it again at some point. That's for sure. And where else? Is that Greece? We've got to do Greece.
We've got to do Greece. So, I see the votes for America, yeah?
Yeah.
And the votes for America are big and massive and will happen.
Yeah.
But
we want to get on a plane.
We might want to do America live from America, because
it'll be the morning. We can drink in the morning.
Exactly. More time to plan. So yeah, we'd love to see America. Yeah, the big thing with America is a lot of the wines that get over here that are really good quality are relatively expensive. Yeah. So to try and pull a tasting together, we could do that, but we may either have to do something a little bit different, or you might have to go, hey, if you desperately want to do American, it's like premium or something.
So for Japan. We have to do Japan at some point, because we could do a mixture of some sakes and some wines, and we could have sake versus wine. That'd be cool.
We could do that. Greece, US.
But can we switch on to whether people have enjoyed the night?
Yeah, we can. Let's go to that. Have you had a good time? And while you vote, you've had a good time, and we can put the prices up as well.
Yes, except it will overlap with that, but that's fine. I'll
okay, so
get that on there. We'll get the prices.
We'll do that. So we'll see if everyone's had a good time. Hopefully you have. If you haven't, really, and I mean this, if you haven't, send us an email and go, what haven't you liked,
what you didn't
why were you useless? If it's about his shirt, we can't fix much about that, but there's many things that we can fix.
Yeah, of course.
But for me, this has been a lot of fun. Germany, outside of Riesling, hasn't always been my strongest subject in wine, and it was really good for me to be able to get in and dive in and learn and get some cool wines and speak to some great people, and we've got some really cool things going on there. There's lots of happy faces, a little bit of a straight face here and
Unfortunately,
there.
it's blocking the prices, so I'm just going to switch that off. So, but you know, we've got to get out to Germany. I've got to take him round. I've got to, you know, we've got to go and film something live from, you know, one of these amazing regions, because until you actually see looking down there, you know, I don't know, for those of you who do skiing, when you get to the top and you sort of go gradually over the edge and everything becomes increasingly vertical and you start getting a bit scared, these people work up and down those slopes. It's unbelievable. So yeah, really
Oregon
cool.
would be amazing.
Oregon would be great.
We just need to do an American series. We need to do a California. We need to do a Pacific Northwest with Oregon and Washington State. We then need to do the East Coast for my old homeland of Virginia, Maryland, and New York State.
He's American, did you?
Don't hold that against me. I'm a lovely person, really. Lots of fun stuff. So it's been fairly sensible. It's been fairly fun. There's a rumour on the street that he might have done a song.
Don't be ridiculous. I'd never do anything.
But we hope you've had a wonderful night. I didn't announce the winners. The winners. I won. Thanks. And overall, surprisingly, the Dornfelder was the winning wine.
I know.
Followed by the Schraber. But if you love the wines,
do get involved. Check out German.
Get involved. You know, jump in, buy the wines. It supports the winemakers who make these things. It means they want to come and chat with us, which, you know, hey, you listen to us, you get bored of us. We get these videos, we get great content. So the more wine we can sell, the more people we can go after and go, hi, we sell your wine afterwards. So anyway.
But we also just want to say thanks to the Wines of Germany for sending over some great video content, and we really hope you've enjoyed the night, and we look forward to seeing you next time, either for the Riesling Masterclass or for Argentina.
Dan, do you want to shout roll credits?
Roll credits.
Oh, God help us all.
It must be Riesling that is king of the castle. There must be a reason why it lights up Jamie's soul. From Deutschland where it is made in a castle. The Germans really make the finest examples of you. Must be the Riesling that is king of the castle. From dry to uber sweet, this grape makes them all. Find it in Australia or even California. But Germans truly make the finest examples of you. It must be Riesling that is king of the castle. There must be a reason why it lights up Jamie's soul. From Deutschland where it is made in a castle. The Germans really make the finest examples of you. Must be the Riesling that is king of the castle. From dry to uber sweet, this grape makes them all. Find it in Australia or even California. But Germans truly make the finest examples of you.